Call this meeting to order. If you all can stand with me, we'll do the invocation and the pledge. Lord, we thank you for bringing us together here today after what seems like a short summer, I'm sure to everyone in this room. We thank you so much for the excitement of the start of a new semester. We pray for these students and for their success here within the walls of this great institution. We thank you for the faculty and the administration and all of the staff and the leaders here who are helping to develop character and to educate and to move people to better points in life. We thank you for all those in this room and for the hard work that each and every person puts in. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. I would ask you all to bear with me, as this is my first time in the big person's chair, I guess, chairing a meeting. But I'm excited and happy to be here, especially with Dr. Williams and her first meeting as president of St. Petersburg College. So welcome, and we will get right to it. We'll start with some preliminary matters and the presentation of retirement resolutions and a motion for adoption. First up, we have Mr. James Manuri. Come on up.
Here's our resolution. Whereas James Manuri, a former St. Petersburg College student, began his full-time teaching career as a speech communication instructor on the St. Petersburg Gibbs campus in 2001. And whereas Mr. Manuri came to the college with a background in human resources, quickly recognized as a gifted and dedicated instructor, his prior work experience prepared him for successfully teaching a variety of courses to a diverse population of students. And whereas Mr. Manuri was an education and training officer in the U.S. Air Force from 1979 to 1983 and directed the Air Force Academy debate team, that team finished as high as third in national forensics tournaments. And whereas Mr. Manuri brought those skills to St. Petersburg College during his campus's forensics club to several state awards. His students and colleagues know him to be a gracious man who holds high standards for himself and others. An eloquent speaker, he once said he could think of no better position in life than to guide and direct students in the pursuit of their dreams. Now, therefore, be it resolved that St. Petersburg College's Board of Trustees and the total college community hereby recognize and appreciate the outstanding contributions to the college by James Manuri, and to extend to him our best wishes for enjoyment throughout the years ahead. Said resolution being adopted and approved by the Board of Trustees, St. Petersburg College, this 15th day of August, 2017. Congratulations.
Since I'm not a very good public speaker, it's kind of rare for me to speak in front of such an august body. And I first of all, would like to thank Dr. Williams and President Williams and thank the Board of Trustees for all the hard work they do. But the two gentlemen are saying next to me, I really have to thank, and that's John Steele and Joe Leopold. They have been my mentors since I've been here. I started, my first boss was a person by the name of Chris Stiles. Chris hired me as a speech and humanities person in the Humanities and Fine Arts Department, and I've had a great opportunity to work with a lot of really outstanding faculty and staff members, but my most important factor of this job was always the students, and just giving them the passion as the St. Petersburg Times, where I retired from as well a number of years ago. But the passion that we should, as faculty members and staff members, give to all of our students, because This helped me out tremendously when I was a student here in 1969. If it hadn't been for St. Petersburg Junior College, I doubt very seriously if I would have gone on for a bachelor's, a master's, and worked towards the PhD. But again, I thank all of you, and I especially thank John and Joe for all of their help and assistance as well. Thank you.
We're going to get a quick picture.
Oh, sure. I forgot my jacket this morning.
You look good.
And we also have Miss Kim Wolf today.
Said resolution, whereas Kim Wolf began her St. Petersburg College career in 1982 and over the years has served as a librarian on a number of campuses, including St. Petersburg Gibbs Campus, Tarpon Springs, Seminole, and Clearwater. And whereas Mrs. Wolf, most recently the Associate Director of the Clearwater Campus Learning Resource Center, has always been a dedicated professional who often would go out of her way to help students and colleagues in their quest for information. And whereas Ms. Wolf's strong interpersonal skills have enabled her to pull library staffs together into productive, cohesive units, she has often been praised by her supervisors as a true professional with a creative mind and a willingness to accept additional duties when asked. And whereas Ms. Wolf was a leader in replacing paper files with microfilms and other electronic data storage systems, her abilities and expertise have always been respected and relied upon by her library coworkers, as well as the students, faculty, and campus administrators where she served. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the St. Petersburg College Board of Trustees and the total college community hereby recognize and appreciate the outstanding contributions to the college by Kim Wolf and extend to her our best wishes for enjoyment throughout the years ahead. Said resolution being adopted and approved by the Board of Trustees of St. Petersburg College this 15th day, August 2017. Congratulations.
Thank you all. It's been my pleasure and my honor, and I can't talk long, but I did notice we have a coffee cup, we have an SPC cup, and you have a bottle of water. And it's a foot in the real world, the heart in SPC, and a clear path forward. And I wish that for all of you, and I will always have my heart at SPC.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Well, we want to thank you both and the others who could not be with us this morning for their time and commitment spent here with SPC and their dedication to their role serving the students here of this great college. Thanks to all of you. We'll move on to recognitions and announcements. We'll be speaking on the new acting Senior Vice President of Student Services and introducing Dr. Renard.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to introduce to you our new interim Senior Vice President for Student Services, Dr. Pat Renard. He has been with the college for over 20 years in various roles that tipped out of student affairs into technology, back over, and will be a welcomed leader in this new interim role. Dr. Renard, thank you. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very good. And our new acting Associate Vice President of Budgeting and Compliance, Ms. Jeanette Hunt.
Good morning, members of the board. Dr. Williams, I am pleased to announce that Jeanette Hunt has been selected as our Acting Associate Vice President of Budgeting and Compliance. You know Jeanette very well. She briefs you on a monthly basis, and she's well qualified to hold this acting role. Jeanette brings with her several years of experience in budgeting and compliance. She has a bachelor's degree from University of South Florida in business administration and accounting. She will serve in this acting capacity until we advertise this role on a full-time basis in September. And I can tell you that, interestingly, she's not only a consummate professional in budgeting and compliance, but she has an interesting personal twist. After hours, she spends her time advocating for human trafficking awareness. And so just when you thought her character was complete, as she stands up here at the podium, you now have an additional dimension to her character, which I think speaks very highly of her. So we're happy to have her in this acting capacity for the next month or so.
Great.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for this, to have this opportunity, and I'm eager to move in this capacity and serve the college, so thank you.
Thanks. And finally, the new Acting Executive Director of Retention Services and Director of Title III, Dr. Misty Kemp.
It is with great pleasure that I introduce to you Dr. Misty Kemp, who has been working with us over the last couple of years with Title III. She comes to us with a lot of experience in enrollment management, recruitment, and other student affairs leadership. I am excited that she is filling the big shoes of Dr. Linda Hogan's and working with the Student Support Services programs as well as a lot of other community initiatives. I present to you proudly Dr. Misty Kemp.
Thank you, members of the board. President Williams, thank you again for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to serve our campus, our students, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks to all three of you. We'll be moving on. Once a year, we have an annual organizational meeting as part of the Board of Trustees meeting. That will take place today and is next on the agenda. I have a fancy little script here so that I don't screw anything up. Thank you, Mr. Lang. And we will go forward first electing a new chairperson or another chairperson or the current chairperson, then the election of a vice chairperson, and then we'll go through with the approval of some of the dates and times of meetings throughout the next year. So I will start here. Section 1001, spot 61 of the Florida statutes requires that each year at its first regular meeting after July 1st, the College Board of Trustees shall organize by electing a chair whose duty it shall be to preside at all meetings, to call special meetings of the board, and to attest to actions of the board, and the board shall also elect a vice chair to act as chair during the absence or disability of the chair. Pursuant to this requirement, I now open the floor for nominations for the chair of the Board of Trustees for the 2017-2018 fiscal year.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that Nathan Stone-Cipher be Chair of the Board of Trustees for the coming year. Need a second for that, though.
Second.
Without any other comment. I'm taken by surprise here, so I'm trying to continue rolling. Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Glad you walked in right when you did. Outstanding. If there is no other comment, we will take yeas.
Yay.
Any nays? Okay, the yeas have it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. I was looking for more to do, so this is perfect. Thank you. No, this is very exciting. I'm honored and humbled that this will be a privilege, and thank you to the board. We will move on to the vice chair, as Nathan Stone-Cipher has now been declared the board chair of 2017-2018 fiscal year. I now open the floor for nominations for the Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees for the 2017-2018 fiscal year. Any nominations?
Mr. Chair, I nominate Katie Cole for Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees.
Second.
With a first and a second, do we have any discussion? As there is none, all in favor, please vote with an aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Ms. Cole, you are Vice Chair.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. As a result of the vote, Katie Cole is declared the new Vice Chair for the 2017-2018 fiscal year. Rule 6HX 23-1-04 of the Board of Trustees Rules and Procedures requires the Board of Trustees to establish a schedule at its annual organizational meeting for its regular meetings for the college's fiscal year, including day, time, and location. You all hopefully have seen in your packet the proposed schedule of dates and locations for each of these meetings. Are there any comments or concerns with any of these dates or meeting places?
Mr. Chair, I just wasn't sure logistically. The November meeting is Thanksgiving week, and I don't know what my family's travel plans are yet, but worried that perhaps it might pose an issue with quorum and then also with the staff and faculty. Since the balance of the week the college is closed, perhaps that one meeting could be moved
To the week before.
to the week before,
The week prior?
Yeah.
if that would work from a reporting.
We can make that.
I'm in agreement with that if that works for everyone else. Okay. Let's make note to move that to the week
14.
November 14th, the week before the 21st. And that will remain at Tarpon Springs. Any other comments on the schedule? Okay. We will go ahead and vote. All in favor of this schedule with the one change of moving the November 21st meeting to November 14th, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. And the last piece of business pertaining to the schedule is with the meeting times. It is not on this particular sheet, but I would propose that we continue on with the 9 a.m. meeting times unless anyone has any issues with that. Everyone good? Devron's good?
I'm not gonna make it whether it's 7 or 8 or 9. It doesn't matter.
Good, fair enough. All in favor of keeping the meetings at 9 a.m.? Any opposed? The ayes have it. We will continue on at 9. Okay. And finally, the chair will be nominating those for, I'm trying to find my notes here. Here we go. Appointments for the Foundation, the Lipa Ratner Museum of Art, and the Institute of Strategic Policy Solutions. We will be naming one. I will be naming one representative to each of these boards. I would like Katie Cole to be part of the Foundation for the next fiscal year. Mr. Gibbons, if you can help us at the Lipa Ratner Museum of Art. And Bridget Bello, would love for you to be a part of the Institute of Strategic Policy Solutions in the next upcoming year. Thank you all. Okay. I just have to find my last page of notes here. The first page. Oh, this one. Thank you. Okay, that concludes, I believe, our annual organizational meeting. and the appointment of board members to the direct support organizations. Thank you all. We'll move on to comments. Also in your packet, you will find, and hopefully you have reviewed, the current board evaluation form for the president for 2017-2018. This is something that gets filled out by the Board of Trustees later on in the fiscal year. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns about the current setup of this evaluation? Are there any additions that we think need to be added? If so, this is the perfect time to bring them up.
Could you review the timing of when we complete the evaluation?
This is in the spring, correct?
The end of your summertime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will be my first one.
Mine too.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if we can do this year, but maybe after this year. I've often asked that we do a 360 evaluation so that the president knows exactly and, keep some of it anonymous where faculty, staff, A&P, and all these other folks can have an opportunity to fill out an evaluation so that we get more feedback as it relates to the president. Maybe we look at doing that next year, but I've often, for the past couple of years, asked, why don't we do a 360 evaluation? I think it helps the whole organization stay healthy. I think it allows for other folks to have input so that the president actually knows what's going on with faculty, staff, and other folks that work for the college. So I don't think it may be appropriate this year because of the first time that we're doing this, but maybe we could start to look at how we would be able to implement that in the following years.
Absolutely. Do you have anyone in particular that perhaps can start working on something like this later in the year?
I'll get back to you on it.
Okay.
Yep.
Trustee Gibbons, I would suggest that we do offer the 360 now.
Okay.
I think it will give the college family an opportunity to know where we stand right this minute, and it will give me as the president an opportunity to know what we need to strive towards.
And
And so I would suggest if we're going to do one, we need to do it now.
Mr. Chair, then if that's the case, there is a transition team that's been put together.
That's right.
Let's add that to the focus of the transition team, how that could be accomplished, and how you get it accomplished in the next year. So
Okay.
I know that they have a window of things that they're going to be looking at to bring back to the board and the president. But if that's one of the things that the president has no problem with in this year,
I have no problem with it.
then let's figure it out.
I think that's a great idea, and we can use the current evaluation form as the base for now and add to it with
Yeah.
360.
Exactly.
Does anyone else have any issues with that?
I think charging the transition team with facilitating that is a good idea in this instance.
The only other comment I've heard concerning the evaluation is that it's not clear whether you're supposed to grade on a score of 1 to 5. It's not clear on here whether 1 is the best grade or 5 is. So if we can just say that 5 is the best grade, we'll move forward with that. We don't want to flip those around. Okay, if there are no other comments, all those in favor of the current evaluation serving as the base and the transition team coming up with more of a 360 evaluation for the current year, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And this passes. Thank you. I do not have any other comments at the moment. Board members, any comments this morning?
I do, Mr. Chair, real quick. Three things. One is Dan Bartow around? Is Dan around? It's my understanding that Mr. Bartow has gotten an award for the best security director in the country for community colleges. Is that right?
Something like that.
And along with that, I hear we got a $500,000 grant or something along those lines related to security, related to this award, right?
Over 8 years, there's been about $450,000 to $650,000
Over
in
8-year
SHISH
time.
gap grant money.
Over 8-year time. So I just wanted to make sure that we recognize Mr. Bartow. He and his team do an excellent job. You know, we hear about all these things happening on at other schools and other campuses around the country, but thank God that we have Dan Bartow. He's kept us safe, and thank you for you and your team. I know nothing gets done just by yourself, Mr. Bartow, so thank you so much for that. We appreciate you.
Outstanding.
Also, Mr. Chair, Dr. Law got the key to the city on last week, which I thought was most appropriate. And that was awarded to him by the mayor and the city council of St. Petersburg last week. And I think, and also keep Dr. Williams and her family in your prayers. She lost her father-in-law on last week, and they were funeralized he was funeralized over the weekend. So we keep you in our prayers, and thank you for what you and your family do for us. We appreciate it. I think that's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
You forgot Dr. Williams also just
Oh!
got, yeah, hello.
I had it down here too.
Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
being
See?
Businesswoman of the Year in the
Yes.
nonprofit and
Thank
government
you.
category.
Thank you.
I was there and I was That's all I have. I'm sorry. Sorry I forgot that, Dr. Williams.
It's okay.
Thank you. Any comments from the president?
Absolutely. This is my 7th week as the president of St. Petersburg College, and I am still excited and honored, elated, just ready to rock and roll. We have the best faculty and staff in the nation, and I want to say in my 7 weeks, we had graduation, we had fall faculty, I've met with faculty, I've spent 2 days in Tallahassee, one with the chancellor. I've had an opportunity to spend a day with the State Florida Chamber of Commerce to learn what's going on with Florida, but also how that impacts us in Pinellas County. I've met with 5 of our delegates in a one-on-one. I've had an opportunity to have a luncheon with the foundation and some of our donors. I've met with Mike Grego, I've met with Ed Peachy, I've met with Mike Mydell. We have visited several of the community centers, and that was just in the first 7 weeks. And I just want to thank the college, the faculty and staff for the work that you're doing, our executive team, my right-hand team, because everyone has been excited, motivated, and moving forward. Our fall faculty, if you were there, people were laughing and smiling, and we were having a great time. We learned a lot about our students and our community, getting prepared for accreditation, the QEP, welcoming our new faculty, those who receive continuing contracts. We are moving, and I'm excited to be a part of that. And so as president of 7 weeks, I feel like it's been 7 months, but it has been exciting, and I am still smiling and still happy and hopeful. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. Oh, I have one more thing. Sorry, I got a letter yesterday that out of the 100 athletes we have at St. Petersburg College, 25 of them were honored in the all-academic team for having a 3.3 and above GPA. And I thought that was a big deal for athletics. That was really good. So I'm very proud of the
Absolutely.
work that they're doing. And our athletes, we're winning on the court as well as in school. So I'm very proud of that.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I do not have any public comment cards, so I believe we can move on.
Mr. Chair, I do have a request. If there's anything that we need to vote on, I may have to leave a little early. If there was any way we can move all those things up on the agenda a little. I'm sorry, but I am overbooked today. It's at 6 a.m.
We may need to move up the, under administrative matters, construction update on the schematic design then, and
Insurance.
in the insurance presentation. So we'll move both administrative matters up. Let's move them after the monthly reports from the board attorney and general counsel. Does that work?
Perfect. Yeah, that's fine with me. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thanks to everyone being flexible in that. Okay. All right. We'll move on to the review and approval of minutes from the meeting of June 20th, 2017. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion is passed. And we'll move on to monthly reports. Anything from Mr. Lang or Ms. Gardner?
Mr. Chair, I appreciate your gracious attribution to me of your script, but unless I drew it 10 years ago, I suspect it actually was your very capable general counsel.
Thank you, Ms. Gardner.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chair. The only thing I wanted to point your attention to was the new law summary, the booklets that are on your desk. I just wanted to let you know this is from the last session. It's selected summaries. The booklet itself is actually electronically on the board website, so if you wanted to go and actually click on the links, you could go right to the bills. So there's a little bit more information there. A lot of the bills were more process oriented, and if there's any questions on any of them, you can please let me know. We'll get more information.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, we will move on then. We'll skip down to administrative matters, and we'll start with the personnel report. We just need to adopt the recommendations as they stand in your board packet. Do I have a motion?
Hold on, I'm just looking. So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Personnel report passes, and we'll move to the health insurance update.
Mr. Chair, I'm
Yes.
sorry, when you asked for discussion, I should have spoken up. I know, based on conversations with Dr. Williams and others, how difficult this transition and from a staffing standpoint, and just appreciate this. There's no other time to say it than when we're approving personnel reports, but I know it's been difficult to have the matriculation that we've had and not replace some positions that you otherwise would have intended to. So I appreciate the efforts at keeping the budget and doing what we need to do to be fiscally responsible. Thank you.
Thanks. Ms. Desiree Warner, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I will be providing you this morning with an overview of our health insurance. I did want to make a note for you all that we have had our insurance as self-insured since 2006. Just wanted to give you a brief history of where we are and kind of the journey of where we're going. So in 2006, we offered two types of plans at that time. We had an open access plan, which was for in-network benefits only. And then we also had a point of service plan that offered both in-network and out-of-network benefits. We're going to fast forward then to 2012, where at that time we determined that we needed to offer a third type of plan to help share some of the cost of the plans with our employees. So we introduced at that time a high deductible plan, and so that's called our high deductible open access plan. We seed that plan today at $1,000 match in the first year for our new employees. And in 2014, that is actually the only plan that we do offer to our new employees. So we do have a mix, and what I'll be talking about on our next slide is actually going to be a combination of those three types of plans. So giving you just a look back and look forward of our actual claim spends. Since 2015 up to 2018, you can see that we have about a $3 million increase in our overall claim spending. Last year when I spoke to you, when we had our projection for 2017, it looked a little different. We actually, in 2016, were expecting that we were going to have an 8% increase in claims, and then for 2017, we would have a 3% increase in claims. What actually happened is that the latter part of 2016, we had sort of just a tapering off of claims. So if you'll see that for the year overall, it was 2%. And then in 2017, in the first 6 months, we hit that spike. And so now we're projecting for 2017 to actually have a 10%. So it kind of balances out, but overall, we're about 1% higher than we had planned to be over the 2-year period. We did, however, at that time, and you'll see in your memo, that we had already anticipated that we would need to make some plan modifications as well as contributions from the college. And so we are prepared to mitigate these increases for the 2016-17 plan years. However, we are also projecting that in 2018 we'll have an additional increase and we'll need to make some plan modifications or some discussions about that. Just a membership trends for you. We continue to see that our high cholesterol and our high blood pressure remain consistent for us year over year. One thing that changed for us this year is that our top 3 category is now gastritis, so more stomach conditions are prevalent. However, we have our top conditions by unique claimants. So the number of individuals who have the conditions over cost would be high blood pressure, high cholesterol, gastritis. We now see obesity, and then we can see again that we have depression there. Last year, depression was in our top 3, and I think that based on our wellness programming that we were able to actually get the depression to come down a little bit, so really pleased to see that. This year, our high dollar claimants are up. High dollar claimants are those claims that are over $50,000. And so we have seen, again, an increase in those areas. And most of those, we're seeing that they're related to cardiac issues. So again, those top 2 conditions are having an impact on our claims. Overall, our demographic remains stable with the females being a majority over the males, and then our average age is around 40. So that's been pretty typical for us over the years. I wanted to just break out the high deductible plan components to show that for individuals in that plan, the deductible is $1,500. For family, it is $3,000, and then there's a copay of 20%. That plan is much different than our other 2, where you can see a deductible there of around $250, and then 100% after that deductible is met. So there's quite a difference in that, in those plans. So if we look at our high deductible plan, we can see that we are up in membership, again, because of our new employees are only offered that plan, and currently our membership is at 403. When we break out the 2 groups of active versus retirees, we can really see then that we've had a switch also over last year. Last year, we actually had our retirees as our top spend category. So this year, we're looking at our active employees. Our medical claims are up 10%. That's about $1.4 million over last year. We're also seeing that that is attributed to some inpatient utilization, so up 24%. We made some modifications in our prescription plans last year to roll into this year, and you can see that that was effective because our spending there is flat. And we also have an increase in the utilization of generics. So 3% over last year brings us to around 84%. Just a couple years back, we were around 78%. So we're doing really well in that category also. For the retirees, really dramatic change. We have our medical that's down by 50%, and inpatient significantly as well at 60%. We had 0 claims over $50,000 in that category this year, so we did see a lot of movement there. And also we have our prescription drugs are down 3%. I just wanted to, again, bring forward the calendar year 17 compared to the calendar year 18. So as I mentioned, we did plan for the change this year through our cash contributions and our plan modifications. However, in 2018, we're looking at the potential of a 3% projected increase, which is around $1 million. So I'm going to share with you some next steps that we're going to be talking about over the next month, and then we're going to be coming back in September to give you a plan to vote on. So next steps, we are going to be presenting to our stakeholders. That includes our executive committee, our deans and provost, our career service council, every opportunity that we have to get in front and talk to people and get feedback, as well as our insurance committee. Our insurance committee is made up of a diverse group of constituents around the college, and so each year we present to the insurance committee and get feedback before we actually bring those recommendations back to the board. We're going to continue to look at our health and wellness program. We believe that we have a very robust health and wellness program, and how we are able to utilize that to help the health of our employees. We can focus more on healthy heart, dietary programming, etc. So we are going to look at that, and I'm going to also be bringing a plan back. I can put in your packets for your review, but it will be presented at our executive committee as well. We're also going to be looking at going forward in 2018 at the very early part of the months of that January, February timeframe of going out to bid with our carriers, because we want to make sure that we're getting the best prices and the best offerings. So we'll look at that. We'll also be looking at our partner colleges to see if there's a potential that we might have a consortium again. So what does that look like? So we'll take everything, put it on the table, and make sure that we're moving forward in the best way possible for our community. And then we'll also make sure that whatever we're doing, that we're looking at our safe harbor, because at this time we're required to have at least 2 months of claim funding in place. That's about 17%, or around $3 million for us at this time. And our cash balance is around $5 million, so we have a little cushion. But as our claims increase, so does that amount increase, so the $3 million can easily inch up. And so we want to make sure that we're safeguarding that safe harbor, and our plan is secure. So we'll make sure that we're doing that as well. So again, I'll be coming back to you in September to make some presentation at that time with more narrowed recommendations to be able to move forward in 2018. So that completes my presentation. Unless you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions? I have one. Have we been able to look at what other state colleges have done as far as their health programs and kind of compare and contrast what we're doing through the process the past few years?
Yes, sir. We have, right now, we are actually gathering information as colleges and looking at how much we're contributing, if we do family versus employee, if they have high deductible plans. And so we are partnering across our colleges right now and gathering some data on that. The last time we did look, we were pretty high on our offerings. We basically are considered a platinum provider, which means we're up in the 90s as far as rate ranking. A lot of our college partners are a part of a consortium, and so we're looking at, again, comparing what type of benefit and cost they're experiencing versus us having flexibility as a self-insured provider. And so I'll be able to also bring that information.
Thank you.
So do we know, so you don't have the data, or whether or not if we join the consortium, whether we would get a cost savings yet? You don't?
No, I don't have that information yet. I'm still seeking that. I know when we looked last year at our offerings, it made sense for us to stay self-insured because they were paying into the programs and had no voice. And they also weren't able to receive any information back on the metrics or health of their employees. And so we do a lot of insight into how we program. We also have a very healthy wellness program, and they comparatively didn't have the same amount of dollars that we do. But we want to look at that again just to see, a second look and make sure.
We'll bring that back.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have construction up next with Jim Wechter.
Mr. Chair, before we get started on that point, the health insurance is one of the areas that, we really need to dive into,
because it's so expensive, and it's going to be a cost that continues to increase. Whether it's
Absolutely.
a private sector or a public sector, it is constantly going up. So Dr. Williams, I would really like a real comprehensive, objective report on what our plan is going forward, because I think it's going to be, you know, if we grow, that cost is going to continue to grow. Even if we go down, the cost will continue to grow based upon the users. Also, the average age of the employee affects, I mean, so many variables that affect health insurance going forward, but the value or the cost of it is still going to increase. So I'd really like to see if we could look at that, take a real good look at how we would get a handle on that. Small businesses go out of business, as Ms. Cole and Ms. Bello can probably tell you better than me. Small businesses go out of businesses based on insurance costs. Oh, you too. Insurance is like I've seen where some folks are at 60% of their total profits are going to paying health insurance, and they can't afford to pay. I just don't want to be, I want to right size this for the college. So I want to make sure that we actually get a very comprehensive report. That's the reason I asked about whether or not, you know, the co-op, maybe if there's a way to do the co-op and we get and ask for certain things that we get, you know, the value back for our buck. But I don't know how you do that without knowing what that system looks like. That's why I'm saying I'd really like us to take a hard look at that. Because that's probably I would imagine that's probably one of the biggest costs we have at the college, right? It's in insurance. So.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons, and I
Mr. Chair?
completely agree. Yes.
Along those lines, with respect to the next steps, I'd also be interested to see how, from a budget standpoint, the fluctuations in our insurance costs go to the bottom line, and how, if at all, and we may do this, and we don't need to have the discussion now, but whether we have a specific reserve to buffer that fluctuation. So if there is or are multiple catastrophic claims, what the impact would be to the college budget. I know we see it simply as a line item. I know that's very high level with respect to what's actually happening, but in your next steps, if you can make recommendations looking at big picture with the college budget as well, I would appreciate that.
We'll bring it back.
I have a lot of information in my hand right now that I can share with you. So we do have stop loss coverage for claims. Our threshold right now is over $350,000. We actually looked at what would happen if we lowered that. Would it make sense so that we could have a little bit more of a buffer? And the cost last year was not actually, it didn't make sense to do that last year, so we kept it at the 350. But we will be able to provide you multiple details of information on drill down.
If it's not too much, Dr. Williams, could we get that information along with what other insurances are provided to employees for them to be able to buy themselves? I know as a company, we allow our employees to buy reinsurance on their insurance just in case they have, you know, I don't care who you are, how much money you make, unless you are, you know, uber rich. There are some medical things that hit you that you cannot afford to pay for, and insurance just doesn't cover it. And so I'd like to see the whole comprehensive package, what we allow our employees to do for themselves and what we do for them, and then also what budgetary steps are we taking to be able to, if anything is catastrophic. So
We'll be happy to bring that back. You know, Trustee Gibbons, what you're talking about is sort of what we go through when we make these decisions. And so we have a lot of data and information. We'll be happy to bring that back to the board and share with you. We have a committee that really dumpster dives in this kind of stuff and look at all the options. We'll make sure we bring that back to you as well. I think your questions are right on point. Luckily, this is stuff that we look at on a regular basis, so we'll bring that back in September.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Wechter and Mr. Jensen.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Williams. I'm Jim Wechter, along with Provost Jamel Connor. We're here with two action items today. One is the approval of the schematic design for the St. Petersburg Gibbs Student Success Center, and number two is the approval of the first phase of the guaranteed maximum price for the civil package for that project so we can get started on the construction. I'll start by introductions, if I could. Jason Jensen is the president of Wanamaker Jensen Architects. He is the design build partner of Jonathan Stanton, president of Lima Construction, who is also here with us today. So between Lima Construction and Wanamaker Jensen Architects, we have a good design build team that's working on this project for us. We're going to start with Provost Connor taking you through a slide presentation, after which Jason will take you through a virtual tour of what the building is proposed to look like. And finally, I will present some numbers on the budget and then the schedule as well. Provost Connor.
Good morning.
Morning.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Williams. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about the schematic design we've been working on for the new Student Success Center at the St. Petersburg Gibbs campus. Dr. Williams had said St. Petersburg College is the plan, not the fallback. And our students see that in the education they receive in the classrooms, but it's also really important for our community and students to see that in our buildings and our campuses, and to feel that in the services we provide to the students and how we provide them. So we started over a year ago holding forums and meetings on our campus. We included students, faculty, staff, and the community in discussions over what should this new Student Success Center be? How should it look? How should it feel? What do we want to accomplish? And Jason and his Wanamaker Jensen team were integral in helping to lead those meetings and then take all of our great ideas and come back with designs that we could work on to come up with this building. The result of those discussions is a 3-story building that is well connected to the rest of the campus, also provides great visibility from 66th Street and 5th Avenue, and brings an indoor-outdoor feel, which is really big for students, especially trying to connect us a little bit more with Eagle Lake, which right now really doesn't get utilized. I mean, we do live in St. Petersburg, Florida, and even though right now, this time of year, we don't necessarily want to be out in the sun, there's a lot of other times that our students that come here from elsewhere, or even here, want to be able to hang out outside. This is another rendering of the building. As you can see, it's an iconic building that draws the eye into the campus off of the main entrance of 66th Street. As you're coming down 66th Street, you would be able to see this much farther along, and at night, the lights would reflect on the lake, which would bring even more visibility to it. As I've been out on campus and talking to people about the college and our campus, more and more times I have heard, I didn't realize that there was a college campus out on the corner of 66th Street and 5th Avenue. And this building, as you can see, is a statement that we are SPC and we are here. More important than just what the building looks like on the outside is the function of what the building is inside. And in our old AD building, if any of you had walked down it, it's primarily a long hallway with rooms on the side that you went off to where your different services were. And while that was functional from a perspective of you can go in there and get those services, trying to get students to come down there outside of peak registration time to talk to an advisor, to ask financial aid questions was really a difficult thing. About a year ago, I moved our career services team onto another part of the campus that was closer to where students tend to hang out. And the number of students that are coming to the workshops that seek career services has increased incrementally or exponentially. So I believe that having that building closer to the campus is really key. So as we look to what the campus or what the building is going to look like for the 3 floors, the first floor are those core services for students. So that's financial aid, advising, career advising, the business office. Also, what the students talked about, they wanted a place that they can come and hang out. We have many students that come on buses. They're waiting between classes. Even between them, we don't want them to just get in their car, take their classes, and then leave again. We want them to feel like they have a space that they can come and hang out, study by themselves, study with friends. Clubs can have meetings with friends. We would have a coffee shop so that they can grab a coffee, sit inside or outside. And so all of those services would be on the first floor. So what makes this different than the first floor of that AD building that I just talked about? Another way we're going to pull them into this center is the majority of the second floor is going to be the Learning Resource Center. So that free tutoring that we offer to students is going to be in a great space that's going to, again, offer spaces for them to have tutoring, study by themselves, have group meetings. We're incorporating a STEM lab where we can collaborate with businesses, new technologies with a classroom attached so that we can bring them in, offer new opportunities for students, quick certifications that we can get. And then what's also on that floor at the bottom of the L shape are 3 classrooms, which we would use for Smart Start orientation, other student activities. In addition to that, we're able to move those walls back and create one big conference center. St. Petersburg Gibbs campus does not have a big conference center where we can have tables and chairs that can be moved around. With the music center, seats 300 people, you can't move those seats. So this gives us an opportunity to bring the community in, have other activities. There's an outside covered terrace outside. So just imagine having something like a dinner before walking over to a music center performance in the music center. So that would be a great revenue generator as well. And then on the third floor are other services, unique classroom space, international programs, veterans, and the associate provost and provost offices. So a few renderings that we have of the building. Again, this is looking, this is that main thoroughfare and foyer of the building, looking from the campus out to the parking lot in 66th Street. Extremely collegiate, a very active and engaging space that students want to hang out, can grab a coffee. You can see no space is wasted. Even the stairways, we're going to have space on the stairways where students can hang out and sit, get in groups, have club meetings, that type of thing. On the second floor, again, will be where learning resources will reside, where students can come and study there. And then this is a view from outside of the provost's office on the third floor, and wanted to show that, to show how open the concept is and how readily students will be able to know, even if they're on the first floor or the third floor, can easily look at where those services are across different floors, and it's a very open space. And this is a rendering of outside what would face 66th Street. Again, that indoor-outdoor space and giving additional opportunities for students to hang out and be together and enjoy being on the college campus. And now Jason will walk through the fly-through.
All right, we start with the fly-through from 66th Street coming across the lake. This is your view, that's the inviting view to the public, the face of the campus. Then as we move around to 5th Avenue, you still keep a glimpse of the building, and then from the campus side to the west. This building has no back door. Every view is meant to be a center to the campus and inviting students to come interact with the building. So a real hub to campus, a real invitation to explore and take part within the building. You can see the glowing building across the lake that will really reflect and give that presence to 66th Street. And then as we start to enter, you have multiple ways to enter the building, but this is from the east side. This is your visitors' maybe first glimpse of what St. Pete College is all about. And then from the campus side, coming into an inviting space that starts to create an open cross-pollination between students, and then allow them to get their services. They're not sitting on the side of a hallway. They're sitting in a space that they can talk to other students and start to meet other people. When you go up through the tutoring and this, what we call a social stair, because it is about socialization, this is how we learn in the 21st century, and then connect them with the outside at all times. You have a lot more glass than many buildings that you're used to seeing, and keep them connected to nature and to what's around them. And then as Jamel said, from the upper floor, the concept of this open floor plate and open views, that you see all the different components of the campus and all the offerings that you have here. It's a true advertisement inside and out. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And lastly, members of the board, is the proposed budget and the schedule for the project. As you know, our original PICO request was $20 million, against which we pledged a 25% match of $5 million. And as you also know, we have received so far PICO appropriations of 16.5. We have matched that appropriately. Our current budget right now stands at 20.625. All the while, our goal and target has been on a $25 million design concept. We are working towards that. We know that our final appropriation will come in just a very few short months here, after which we'll be fully funded for this project. So we're well on our way. The schedule on the next slide shows that we are, upon board approval today, we'll begin the underground infrastructure work, all the chiller lines, underground utilities, plumbing lines, electrical, and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, Jason and his group of civil engineers, structural engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, and the architects themselves are working furiously towards the 100% documents, which we hope to bring to you in the November or January board meeting, after which the building will actually come out of the ground with some steel structures. If we have an opportunity, we're looking with Vice President Mile at some potential opportunities to expedite that even beyond this schedule, and if and when we have those identified, you will be the first to know. Any questions?
Let's talk about schematic design first, if we could. Any questions or comments from the board?
I have one quick question. I saw, is there an outside sitting area or something? Looks like it was a trail or something, Dr. Connor? Provost Connor?
Yes, sir. There's outside seating that's covered by the terrace, as well as the idea being that we would place some additional seating that would kind of go down towards the lake, opportunities for, again, clubs or small groups to be getting together and holding sessions.
I like the fact also that you used the staircase at every space in the building for the students. I really like that. Thanks.
I think it's a great design. It utilizes the lake, which has been underutilized, as we've discussed, and the open feel seems like it'll be welcoming for all to gather, congregate, spend time in that building, and it feels fresh. I think it'll bring some energy to that campus as well. I love the design. Any comments concerning the guaranteed maximum price, which is the second piece of what we'll be voting on this morning, as it stands in your packet today?
We're voting on the entire $25 million, Mr. Chair, or the $20 million?
I believe we are voting on the 1.56 million. Is that correct, Mr. Wechter?
That's correct. That's correct.
Mr. Chair, I would ask that we really look at this today as a total package and vote on the $20 million, and here's why. We need to really get in the ground on this, and internally they can figure out what their schedule's going to be. But if we have $20 million and we're allocating 1.6 from now until January, I can tell you the legislators are going to be upset that we are not moving forward with this building. I've received already 2 phone calls from legislators about why we have not gotten further along with regard to this building. The legislature this year starts in January. It does not start in March. So from the timeline that I saw here today, we will only have the infrastructure stuff done between now and December or January. We need to get going, because the thing that we went to the legislature and that we said when we got this first appropriation of the $10 million and now $6.25 million, if I'm not mistaken, this last session, $16 million, we said we were going to be able to come back to show the President of the Senate, who is not a fan of community colleges, we know, that we would be further along with this facility than we are now. I think we need to get going. That's where I'm at. And if we're going to piecemeal this thing to death, this is not a board action that we need to be going through this every 3 months. You turn this over to the president or her team, and they need to get moving on the project. I don't understand why we're going to vote on 1.5 million or 6 million today when we could just vote what we have, because now the state will not allow you to do a contract on money that you do not have. So we're short about $5 million, and we'll probably get that. And based upon the conversations I've had, we will get the $5 million next year. They're not going to spend $20 million between now and next summer. I don't care how fast they go on this project. So let's just get out of the way. I mean, give them this money. Let the president and her staff come up with it. He just said, Mr. Wechter just said they're going to try to expedite this thing with Mr. Miles and their team. I don't understand why we need to see this. Maybe give us random updates. Let's maybe put in that motion that we have updates on where we are in terms of budget and spending. But I mean, we need to get going.
Mr. Wechter, how in the past for capital projects of this size, what has been the normal course of action for the college?
Well, interestingly, this is a design-build project, so we do have the opportunity, which is our action item this morning, to go in phases. It allows you to get started with certain small packages, civil being today's, structural steel potentially another one, and move through the project in phases as it's being designed. That's clearly the advantage of a design-build project, as opposed to a construction manager at risk, at which you bring a 100% design with one guaranteed maximum price, when it's completely designed. The design phase takes a lot longer that way, but you only come to the board once. We're at an advantageous point with this project, given that it's design build, that we can get this start with a partial design. And I'll yield to Jason on this. The design is 2 or 3 months from being complete. And if we encumber all the money, we're encumbering the money against a design that just physically doesn't exist. That's a risk that this board would need to know that they're willing to take. We did it at Bay Pines. We did that very thing at Bay Pines. The board approved a complete package without anything more than a schematic design. I stood before this board in April with a change order. It was not my proudest day at this college when I asked for a change order because the project came in over budget to the tune of about 8%. That's the risk we take when we encumber the money prior to a complete design being done. That's the board's decision to make, obviously.
What will be the next time period and request for funding or authorization?
Well, that's what I had mentioned, that Mr. Miles and our group will get together. Normally, you bring the next package. The civil package is clearly a nice early opportunity to get started. There's a lot of work that has to happen underground on a project of this nature. That's what we're proposing to encumber today. The next phase would either be the building design, probably maybe less the finishes, and there is an opportunity, as I mentioned, I don't know that it exists quite yet, but we'll know in a week or two, about bringing an early, what we call a structural package, which is all the structural steel. It's a huge lead time component of the project, and obviously it's one of the first things that comes out of the ground is the structural steel. If Jason, and I'm talking a bit prematurely, forgive me, because we haven't even had these conversations, but if we can identify a structural steel package that has an 8 or 12 or 16-week lead time, bring that to the board very, very soon, because that involves only the structural engineer's design, not all the mechanical and everything else. We could come back with that structural steel package very soon, potentially even as early as September, get it ordered, and that would certainly accelerate because of that lead time. It's a critical path item on the schedule. That's an opportunity that we're going to be looking at for sure. Does that answer your question?
What percentage of the, I'm very appreciative of the calls I've received from our legislators as well who want to see this coming out of the ground. On the other hand, my very first meeting was the Bay Pines request for additional funds. So I also don't want to put the college in that situation, especially when we've been working, you all have been working so hard on the budget. So I guess what I'm trying to find out is when could we get additional phases to approve to show the legislators that we are actively spending this money to get this building out of the ground without being irresponsible and putting ourselves in a bad situation for budget overage. So if we could get that structural package, and what percentage of the overall $25 million budget is that structural package?
Boy.
I'm just trying to think in magnitude.
It's not a huge number, but it's a huge milestone. I'm going to guess and say probably $2 million. It's not a big number, but it's a major milestone. But right behind that, we could encumber the rest of the design. But to keep the project moving, that's the key. So that when we get to December or January, the structural steel is already behind us, and we're moving on some masonry items and all the mechanical design and all that kind of stuff. Jason, please.
Just to relay on the process, even the site package is actually an acceleration of the process, not a piecemeal per se, because we are getting this out ahead of time before doing the whole project. So we could say, let's wait till we have a full GMP of all the pieces, which the risk that Jim mentions is that if you don't know what the whole car looks like, you don't necessarily want to decide which engine to put in it. So, this is kind of the act of, if you put a few steps ahead, you're just taking a little bit of risk that should you have pulled back a little bit something earlier, because you don't have the complete picture. But we're working on all of that, and Lima is working diligently with the estimates along the way. But this is part of the process. We're in design development. We're going quickly into construction documents. The these are all phases in the normal process that we need to go through to make sure that the college and the maintenance and facilities all have opportunities to make sure that the quality is in line. So we have to get those documents really before anything can come out of the ground. But with that, we can work on these packages to get that expedited and work with Lima to estimate ahead of time to make sure that we're hitting those budget marks.
I hear you. I hear you. I understand. I'm just telling you, this is taking an awful long time, and we need to get going. That's what I'm going to tell you. We need to get going. I mean, we are in jeopardy now of not getting money from the legislature because we haven't done anything we said we're going to do. I'm being flat out honest right now. Okay? I mean, we said we were going to get started. We were going to get this building in the ground. We were going to go back. We were going to be able to go back to the Senate President Negron, and be able to say, we have started this building. We're in the ground with this building. You can't leave us with half a building. We haven't done that. And I'm surely afraid that when the legislature ends this year, after the 60 days from January to I think about March, we won't have enough done to be able to say that we honestly did that. And that's my fear. So I'm just telling you what my fear is. I hear you that we should not move forward with doing the $20 million, but we need to get going. As many packages as you can bring with good numbers and good things that you can bring us over the next 90 days, I will be bringing them because this is a major concern. We selected the architect and the builder over, a year and a half ago?
The contract for that organization came to the board last October, Mr. Gibbons.
So October, we're almost at a
10
year,
months.
and we, I'm not a specialist at this, but I know it don't take a year to do all these plans and designs if we get going. And, so let's figure out, Mr. Chair, I will do whatever you guys want to do with this, but I'm just telling you that I've had major concerns brought to me about this. We do have the appropriations chair as our senator right here in our backyard. It's not going to look good for us to go back to him and say, we got the ground done.
Sure.
And this guy's going to bat for us. So.
So can we just agree that we'll have the structural steel package by the next board meeting and go ahead and be able to vote on that so that we do have steps in place?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I would say not at the next board meeting. That's too early to have an accurate package, but the following one we would be able to have a full, because it's not just a steel package, that's a foundation package and a steel package. Foundation really is the first package to be let out, and then the steel with that. So I would say 30 days would be a little bit premature. 2 would certainly be doable.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to do this.
Hi. The college, the staff has a really good plan. Basically, 3 phases. The first phase, 1.6 million, all the underground. The next phase is 100% documents, and we're going to bid out the rest of the job. But the third phase is going to be not building out the east wing and the provost in case you do not get that $3.5 million. So the college has a good plan on the 3 phases. We're not going to have all the drawings done till probably November, and we'll have all the bids come in December. So in December, we will be able to say that it's going to be another 15.5 million for the building and another 3.5. So 1.6 for the first phase, 15.5 for the second phase, and then the build out on the third phase. The plan is good, the GMP is good. Instead of coming back and say, vote on the 1.6, vote on the 15.5, and then vote on the 3.5, it's saying, hey, vote on the 3 phases and make sure they do not exceed the budgets. And we're going to be under budget. And that's the whole purpose of the design build, is that to make sure we don't exceed the budget. So I don't know if that answers the questions, that by probably December, and I don't think there's a board meeting in December.
There is.
Is there a board meeting in December?
Yeah.
So probably in December, we will be able to come back and say that we spent the 1.6 you approved, and then in December, we have the rest of the money allocated, and we have all the bids come in, and you could vote in December on the rest of it, and you will be voting on the second which is the building, and then the third phase, which is the build out of the third floor in the east wing.
So is it going to take from now to December to do the groundwork?
Yeah, we're going to be working, spending the 1.6 probably the rest of the year. And usually in construction, it's like a bell curve. You kind of start out slow, and when you come out of the ground, you start spending more money, and towards the end, the detail work starts going down. So we're going to be spending that 1.6 and doing the work through the rest of the year. And in December, the plans will be done, and all the bids will be coming in, and then we will be able to come back to the board and ask for approval, probably for all the money, the rest of the money, but doing it in 2 phases, where we're doing the building, and then we're doing the final build out of the 3.5 million. Okay?
Understood.
I'd rather go back to Ms. Bellows' suggestion that if in October we can have the structural package to commit those funds, and then I'd also ask from a publicity standpoint if we could at least have a formal groundbreaking or whatever we do this fall, as soon as we know, because once we have the structural package, we'll know the box, where we can have the pictures and the shovel. I mean, I just think that those things make a difference with the legislature.
That makes sense, thank you.
I didn't know it had been a year.
Yeah, in October,
I wasn't here.
I know, that's right.
December, we would probably have all the plans out. Now, we could come up with a separate steel package, so that's probably another vote. So you'd be voting for the underground, the steel package, the rest of the building, and then the build out of the other phase. It will cost you more money in advertisements, and we didn't plan it that way. We were going to bid out the whole building at one time. So we were going to bid out the publicly advertised, the underground, and then publicly advertise the rest of the building at one time. So if we do separate and you want an early steel structural package, it will cost you a little more money in advertisements, which is
But
not
it will
a huge
show good
amount.
faith to the legislators.
Right.
I think that's.
What are our advertising requirements?
The only thing is even if we come to you and do an early steel package, we will not be doing this building steel package till next year.
You won't be utilizing the steel till next year.
Yeah.
Mr. Rector said it's a
bid it out,
12
get
to
pricing.
16 week order time. So if we commit the money, that could get ordered, which means if we commit the money in December, then we're 12 to 16 weeks out coming out of the ground. If we commit the money in October and you can order it,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we could order the steel, get the money in, but it's not going to come out of the ground any sooner because of that. It will help us order the steel a little bit earlier, but still there's going to be a schedule and a phase, and we're not going to be able to come out of the ground any sooner.
What day would we, what month would you be coming out of the ground with the steel if we ordered it early? It would still be March?
Yeah, still March.
why if we
we're
approve the
behind.
foundation package with steel and foundation, are we not coming out of the ground
Because
earlier?
we're going to be doing the site work and underground through December.
Right? Why wouldn't we come out of the ground in January if we order the steel earlier?
We would be doing potentially the foundations, January, February.
Right.
Maybe we could be doing a month early, maybe February, maybe a month early.
I think what would be maybe advantageous, because we're necessarily prepared for the schedule discussion with this trajectory, I would suggest that we work on the foundation and the steel package and come with a schedule at that same meeting, to discuss that, because I think we're on the fly discussing a schedule which is totally different from the schedule that we were working on previously.
But not in October, in September, be able to have that conversation.
I mean, we will have the package for you in potentially
Right.
October. If you wanted a schedule update, I'm sure that they could give you a schedule update in the September board meeting.
I mean, I'm sure we can come back for another vote for the structural package, ask for that money, and then after you approve it, then we can advertise it. And we could allow us to order the steel. I don't know if it's going to hurry up the schedule a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, here's my dilemma now. I mean, I'm listening to you guys, and I'm not trying to put any undue pressure. It doesn't sound like it's going to work until March, right? We are definitely behind the curve. I'm not wanting to put people in situations where you go and rush and we get a product that nobody's happy with and have a bunch of mistakes and all that. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is we need to get going on this building. I mean, a year is a long time for a planning phase for any facility. So, I mean, at this point, we're stuck to the March deadline or date, it sounds like, to be coming out of the ground. So, you know, maybe we have to just bid it the way that they're bringing it to us. Or maybe we do it with the guaranteed lock-in price that they can't go above and beyond. But the fact is, we are, you know, I took it on the chin this last week over this building, right? And I just want to make sure that we get moving. I don't know how we do that now, because we put ourselves in a position where, you know, we've had, the first year we got 10 million, that was over a year ago. This last session, we got 6 million, 6.25 million. That's 16 million. I felt like we should have been phasing this thing going in. Now, I can't blame this president, she wasn't here, not blaming Dr. Law, but I know that the state will not allow you to contract for funds that you do not have. But we had $10 million, and it seems like to me some of this, if you're coming to us asking us for $1.5 million or $1.6 million, we could have been doing this in the spring with $10 million. So, you know, Dr. Williams, I just want to see this move. I want to see this process move forward.
I will say that the college has been very judicious about considering the potential that you don't get that second 10 million. And part of this process is saying, yes, we could design a $20-25 million building, but maybe we only designed a $15 million building and you would start over from square one.
Well, and that's the issue that
Yeah,
the legislator is mad about.
That's what they put you.
Well, that's what the issue the legislator is mad about. He's the appropriations chair. And, you know, when it makes it look like we have no faith in the folks that represent us. Right? And so if you're telling me the staff is telling you that we designed to a $15 million building, then his assumption has been right, that the staff doesn't have any faith in what's going on and how he leads in Tallahassee, he or she, because we've had women legislators that are helping us as well there. So, you know.
We've always designed the same building. We're progressing for that.
What I would propose.
Yeah, let's move on.
What I would propose is that we vote on the guaranteed maximum price for phase one today, and that we set a goal here that by December's meeting, we can vote on the allocation of the guaranteed maximum for phase 2 and 3, so that we at least have that confirmed with the Board of Trustees meeting before January and session starts. But I think from here on out, maybe every 2 months, we have an update on where we're at with the build, where we're at with the process going forward, if that works for everyone, so that we can stay on top of what's going on.
Yeah.
So first, do I have a motion to approve the schematic design that was presented here today?
I move that we accept the schematic design, Mr. Chair.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, schematic design passes. And then do I have a motion to approve the phase 1 construction guaranteed maximum price of $1.566 million as it stands within the packet of this meeting, with the expectation of a vote for phase 2 and 3 in December?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you
Mr.
all.
Chair, I would add, thank you. I would add one more thing to this discussion. A prior board members put on the agenda and also voted on that on this building we would put Carl Cutler's name. And I know that Dr. Cutler did not move to accept, but I think as a board we should do what's right. And if that board voted on it, we should put that name on there. And I know people have different feelings about that, but the guy served here as president for a very long time, and we still have to do what's right. And the board, the previous board voted to put his name on this facility. So I just bring that back for another date that we may want to discuss that.
Okay. Noted. We are going to, Mr. Gibbons, since you have to leave, we're just going to push through before we go backwards to the consent agenda. There was quite a bit of information on there for this month. I would recommend that there's a motion from someone on the board to approve the total consent agenda unless there are any questions or comments about it at this time.
Chair, I move approval for the entire consent agenda.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Okay. Thank you to everyone for being flexible as we have moved the schedule around a bit. And we're going to jump back now to student success and achievement. And Dr. Coraggio is going to talk about an enrollment update for the fall.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and congratulations on your new appointment.
Thank you.
And good morning, remaining board members and Dr. Williams. This morning, Dr. Coraggio and I are going to brief you on our fall enrollment. As you know, the semester started yesterday. This first slide is actually a compilation of statistics about recent students. You've seen most of this before in various presentations, but we thought it would be beneficial to bring this data in one slide because it does present, in some cases, challenges that our students have. 75% are working. 2/3 of our students are taking at least one online course. 45% of our students are 26 years old or older. About 36.8% are minority. 35% have at least one dependent. 35% are first in their family to attend college. And 14.6% are seeking a baccalaureate degree. This is a heat map that shows our fall enrollment, and as you can see, most of our enrollment comes from Pinellas County, 73% in fact. But you also see that we have concentrated enrollment in Pasco and in western Hillsborough County. So within the 4-county area of Tampa Bay, 92% of our students come from those 4 counties, and 98% come from Florida altogether. Okay, this is a slide that you are accustomed to seeing. The bar chart on the left is the overall head count. So as we started the term yesterday, we ended up minus 3.4% in head count and minus 3.4% in student semester hours. You'll see a note at the bottom that we have taken our open campus enrollment out of this data. Open campus is the dual enrollment courses that are taught in the high schools. And the reason we've done this is because of varying enrollment patterns and the difference in our schedule and the Pinellas County school schedule. We did not have all the open campus enrollment in our system, and it was impacting the numbers. Also, that enrollment is not enrollment by which we receive student tuition and fees. So this more accurately depicts our true enrollment for budgeting purposes. I do want to convey that we have been registering students since April. We monitor our enrollment daily, year-over-year comparisons. And sometimes during the summer, we were down as far as 6 to 10%. And while we're not happy with minus 3.4%, and nor should you be, I want to convey that it really represents a collective, extraordinary effort from everybody at the college, not just student services, but faculty, deans, facilities, marketing, IT, to get this number, to recruit more students, admit more students, enroll more students, and retain the students that we have. This looks at just the student semester hours broken, divided by lower division versus upper division. So you see we have a healthy growth in our upper division baccalaureate programs. We've been experiencing that for the last year. I think there was one semester about a year and a half ago where we actually saw a decline in upper division. You also see our lower division, that is where we're bleeding. That's where we have the declines, and we'll show you some more detail in just a moment about that. This slide looks at enrollment type, continuing student, a new student, readmitted student. So a continuing student is a student who's been enrolled at St. Petersburg College in at least one term in the last year. And you see a minus 4.4%. This is headcount data with our continuing students. We're actually up in new students. We stood here a year ago and we were down almost 4% in new students. So we worked hard for this number, and we'll show you a little bit more detail with the new students in a few moments. And we're minus 3.6 in our readmits. Those are students who have sat out for a year or more. As we look at degree objectives, AA, we're down minus 4.9. Baccalaureate headcount, this is headcount data here, we're up 2.3%. Those not seeking a credential, that's all of our students who are here for enrichment purposes, our transient students, we're up 2.1% with that population. Where we're having the most trouble is in our AS and certificate programs and students. We're minus 6.5%. And Dr. Coraggio is going to share some data about next steps on what we're going to do to address some of that. This looks at SSH just with our baccalaureate students. The top part, those are all trending upwards, so you see nice healthy increases with public policy and administration, health services administration, business, public safety, the College of Computer Information and Technology. And you see the areas and disciplines that are lagging. This looks at ethnicity. Again, we're looking at head count. We are looking at all students here. African American students were minus 4%. Asian students minus 1.8%. Hispanic students were up 3.5%, a trend that we have been seeing for probably 3 to 4 years now with growth in the Hispanic population. Our Caucasian white students are minus 4.6, and all other ethnic groups, minus 5.1. Gender, unfortunately, most of the decline that we're seeing is with our male students. This looks at enrollment by age. The only category we're seeing actual increase is in our 18 and under. We're going to share more details about that population in a moment. But we're seeing about a roughly 5% decline in every other age category. Just want to take a moment to share just a smattering of some of the community outreach. I'll just talk about a couple of these. We made a concentrated effort beginning in February to get the advisors more involved in high school outreach, and as you'll see in a moment, that paid off. In some cases, the advisors were actually in high schools registering seniors in the high school, something we have not done before. We've always encouraged application, come to campus to register. We're actually registering students in the high schools. Information sessions, these are sessions that are held to promote all of our academic programs, roughly on average about 6 per month held throughout the whole county. I want to point out the Pinellas Parent Educator Association Convention that was held at the Clearwater campus, Dr. Vitito, and you'll see in a moment that we reaped some dividends with that engagement there. We were out in the community. There had been some concern that we hadn't lost that touch. We tried to turn that ship, and we've been out in the community. We're going to be doing more and more of this. We're now going to turn it over to Dr. Coraggio.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. So some good news overall. Again, as Dr. Renard mentioned, we're really not where we want to be in terms of enrollment, but we felt like we have made some effort and have tried to subside some of the declines that we're seeing, and this is one indicator of that. So this is first time in college students, and we're going to look at these for the next couple of slides. This is the first time a student enters St. Petersburg College, or any college for that matter, after they've left high school. So you'll see here when we look at age, it doesn't necessarily mean all younger students, but where we are seeing is growth. So this is a population that we talked about just a few minutes ago that had been declining, that we're actually seeing increases. So you saw overall metrics for the college. With first time in college, we're seeing growth. So for African American students, they were up 20.6% over last fall. Hispanic students are up 15.9%. A small increase for our white students, But overall, we're up about 6.4%, where we are actually trending downward in this particular population. When we look at that information according to age, again, think about what you just saw for the entire college, we're seeing increases in those 18 and under. I believe that was a lot of work that was done by some of the campuses to promote students actually on high school grounds filling out applications, where we actually went into the high schools. There's some real good examples of that. We also had a good impact with 19 to 21-year-olds. That was up 8.6%. We see increases in the rest of the students with the exception of 22 to 25. That's an area we need to work a little harder with. But we do have increases in 26 to 35, and we're up 13.4% in those first-time at college students that are 36 and older. So there's two elements that are associated with enrollment. There's the ability to bring in new students, which is going to increase your enrollment, and we've had some success here that we haven't had for the last couple of years. But the second piece of that is keeping the students you already have. So retention's a key piece, and in some respects, retention's the low-hanging fruit. Students are already here. We're not having to pay the big dollars to bring them in and recruiting. They're actually here sitting in our classrooms. So we wanted to bring you this slide to talk a little bit about retention, because it's a key piece and a key initiative as we move forward. It was discussed heavily when we had our conversations in December. This specifically looks at fall-to-fall retention. It's broken out in the first column. You'll see fall 2016, first time in college, and we're going to take that group of students, 3,212 students, and then look at what happened when they came back in fall 2017. Now you'll see how many classes they took. We define full-time as 12 or more credit hours, and part-time is basically less than that amount. You can see where they started and where they end up with enrolled. So a few of the interesting things that comes out in this particular analysis: one, overall, 57.5% of our students came back from fall to fall. That's an interesting number. We've done some comparisons at the state level. We're just a little above average. We're not real high on that measure, but we're slightly above average when we've done some of our comparisons. But if you look at the full-time students, 70.8% of those students came back. When you look at the part-time, it was about 50%. So that's something we want to work at, and we know our full-time students are generally more engaged. The other interesting dynamic here is look at the high percentage of students that started full-time, that came back full-time, and conversely look at the ones that didn't. So 280 of those students who originally came here full-time in fall 2016 came back, but they came back in a part-time capacity. And that's something else that we need to work pretty hard on, especially with the recent conversations with the legislator, are how many, there was a number of performance metrics that were proposed in the new Senate bill that actually got vetoed by the governor, but a lot of those metrics were around 100% of the time. So how many students finished a 2-year degree in 2 years, and how many students finished a 4-year program in 4 years? Well, if we have students that start out full-time and then they are retained, so we've got them to come back, but they're now coming back in a part-time capacity, it's almost impossible for them to finish 100% of the time. So that's something we need to work at, even though that number's gone up quite a bit. So I look back at the prior year, and the percent who start full-time that came back the prior year was about 50%. What we're looking at for here is about 2/3 of those students starting as full-time and coming back. So we're making progress there, but that's something we need to continue to work on. This is information on Pinellas County high schools. We're very proud to be able to report with all the hard work that's gone on with the campus and the advisors that we now have working in some of that recruiting capacity with the high schools. We had a 5% increase in the percentages of high school graduates that came to us as an institution. You can look at the yield. Overall yield so far, beginning this fall, was 31.5%. Now, based on historical data, that number will go up to about 40% when we now add in spring and summer as we go forward. But it's a good increase. You see there's a number of good, strong increases that we had from year over year. You look at Dunedin, it was up 33.3%. Palm Harbor was 22.3%. So there's some that have dramatically increases. There's other ones we need to work on. And one that stands out there is Lakewood High School. They were down 34.8%. They're pretty noticeable when you look across those numbers. We need to figure out how we can work closer with that high school and increase some of the yield from that particular institution. The next chart here is going to look at both private schools as well as home schools. Now, in the private school area, we're pretty flat. You see, we went from about 101 students in 2016 to only 95 in 2017, a slight decline. But what we see an increase is when you look at the homeschooled. And as Dr. Renard mentioned, the Clearwater campus did some great work hosting And you can see the increase. We went from 67 students up to 101 students. So a good dramatic increase there. This is another interesting graph. This looks at Pasco County high schools. We're actually up 25%, and you saw a little bit of that when you looked at the demographic. Wanted to share some information for Mike Bennett's area. We actually had 17,440 students who were awarded aid. That represents $119.5 million. About 60% of our students actually received some type of aid from the institution, whether that be Pell Grants, student loans, or other scholarships. And here's some of our next steps. We have recently, under Dr. Cooper's guidance, conducted a few provost and dean's meetings, both on June 16th and July 14th, for the focus on looking at all of our programs and understanding where we want to, one, create new programs, or two, refresh and revitalize some of our existing programs. This is a list that we've put together in terms of some initiatives coming forward. The first two are already actually in place, and that's expanding our elementary education program as well as our education, studies, and community leadership program into an online environment where there traditionally had been just face-to-face classes. Those expansions yield some increases that we saw in the earlier screens. We typically have been down double digits in education, and we're down into single-digit numbers and starting to really flatten out on some of the change. Expansion of EMT to Tarpon Springs is something we're working on, and then a number of new program ideas that have come out of those strategic discussions. 911 dispatchers program, certified community health worker, mechatronics, which is really the automation that goes along with manufacturing, robotics and simulation, and then lineman apprenticeships and recent conversations with Duke Energy. And then you may have heard about the governor's proposed funds. He put up $85 million. That would be to be funded through the Department of Economic Opportunity. The applicants for those funds were limited to colleges and technical centers and various municipalities, but it had to relate to training. So we currently have 2 applications that are in process. The first one is Electromechanical and Mechatronics Technician Training Program. That's a partnership with a number of corporations, including Lockheed Martin. That's for $1.6 million. We put that application in. And the second one is Pinellas County Security and Defense Center. This is really a design of a simulation training center that would involve a number of programs and work directly with the local municipalities, police departments, EMS companies to really prepare us in the case of a crisis, and does involve a PSAV program as well. Some quick noteworthy observations. Headcount and SSH you saw are down 3.4%. While we're not proud of that, we actually plan to be down 3.5% based on our budgeting models at the direction of the board. So we're pleased we're not in the negative in that comparison, but we want to figure out how to get flat, if not improve. Baccalaureate SSH is up 3.6%. We're actually just over 15% to give you an idea of the scope of the baccalaureate as it relates to the other programs that we have. FTIC enrollment is up 6.4%. New students are up 1.1. That would include students that are first-time transfers. African American student enrollment, you see, is down overall 4%, but up 20.6% for FTIC. Hispanics up in both categories, up 3.5% and 15.9%. We talked a little bit about some of the retention numbers and the difference in part-time, full-time. We talked about Pinellas County graduates being up 5%. And finally, as I mentioned, over 60% of our students are currently receiving financial aid. Any questions we can answer for you?
Any questions from the board?
Am I the only one that's really bothered by almost half of our students not returning?
No,
I think everyone's bothered by that.
no, you're not the only one.
I mean, to say that we're just a tick above average, the only time being average is okay is when it makes us feel better.
Right.
No, clearly that's an area. I mean, while we feel like we've made some gains in terms of bringing in new students, as I mentioned, there's 2 components to the equation associated with retention and recruitment, and that's getting our enrollment up is keeping the students we already have. So that's an area we have to put some energy into. And that really gets back to some of the discussions about how do we improve the environment in the classroom and keep those students.
Can we reach out to the ones who don't come back and ask them why?
We spend a lot of time, energy, and effort, getting those students to come back and register. Students have personal issues, they're working, there are a lot of different reasons, but right now our faculty are working on a plan to improve the classroom environment, while the other team is working on a plan on the outer classroom to get them to re-register. We're almost re-recruiting, honestly, our students each term, because we're trying to get them to re-register for the subsequent term. And so it's something we're putting a lot of effort and energy into. We do have a small plan on how we can get them encouraged to register early and on time. The report that you are seeing is really not totally complete because our last day is Friday. And so students are even registering today. So we hope that we'll be able to bring more information back in our September meeting to tell you where we really landed. We still have another term coming up within this semester. And so we're not quite there. We're a little premature in bringing you this report. Typically, classes start a week down the road, and that gave us a little bit more time, but we started a little earlier this semester, so what you have is sort of premature. But we are working on a plan. You guys have given us that challenge last December, and the goals that you set for us this year is to improve the classroom experience and to put together a strong enrollment management plan. So we're working on a recruitment and retention plan. We do not have a real tight plan at this point. That's where we are.
I wasn't here in December. So.
I'm sorry. I've got to get with you more on that to bring you up to speed. But that was the board's charge to us in December.
Yeah, but we probably discussed this in the past. Have we ever looked at an incentive program to get people to continue to sign up semester after semester so we can retain them here?
Yes, we have looked at actually putting in some sort of appointment schedule for students to register. The associate provosts have talked at length about what can we give them to entice them, to get them to come register early. We've even talked about a prescribed schedule that we send to them. Here's your schedule, here's what you took last semester, these were the hours, this matches. It's just getting the programming and things in place to do that. But they have done some work on putting something in place for that.
I'm really interested in the decline in the specific programs, and I'm especially surprised at the decline in the nursing enrollment. As I know some of you all know, I also sit on the board of Martin Plant Mease Hospital, and sitting in those board meetings, I hear about what the need to hire nurses are, and so that seems like low-hanging fruit if we could get those two things together. And I know that we don't need to respond to that necessarily specifically, but that's something that I'd be interested in seeing when we're talking about recruitment plans, is looking at these specific programs. What is the low-hanging fruit? Who do our employers say that they need to employ, and how do we match that up?
So in that specific instance, and we can speak to some more from that particular chart, potentially we can bring some of that back or talk individually. In that particular instance, that's looking at baccalaureate nurses. So it's not looking at RNs, which I know is huge demand right now, is the RNs. And the baccalaureate, we've actually seen some of the hospitals start to back off what the requirement was.
Because they're
and a lot of them wanted
level.
a lot of them wanted to get some specialized accreditation, and that was going to require a higher percentage of BSN nurses. And over the last couple of years, we've seen the hospitals begin to back off, and you may have had some of those conversations in those meetings. They backed off on that requirement, and we've seen our enrollment decline a little bit in our baccalaureate nursing program.
Interesting.
Where at first, when those originally came out and they all wanted to move it, it peaked upwards. But our end, we're not seeing those decreases. I mean, it's still
Collectively.
a program,
Yeah, and I guess that would be something too. I know that we are judged as an institution on the AA versus,
The
they're very
bachelor.
distinct. But I think from a programming standpoint and how we look at what the college is offering to the community may not look at those distinctions, especially so if we look, not to create a huge reporting effort, but it would be interesting if we look at some of our employers' greatest needs and then look at what we're offering soup to nuts from certificates, AA, and bachelors. And I'd like to see, what our enrollment is collectively, because to your point, we may have lost 13% in baccalaureate, but increased 20% in associate's degrees, and so our enrollment collectively was not negatively impacted.
And
And I don't know what kind of report, it might just be picking some sample programs based on what our community wants.
We could even look at our career and academic communities for the whole stream, from
Mhm.
lower and upper. But I will share, during their strategic workshops, we actually brought community needs. That was a key point of
Mhm.
data for our discussions with deans
Great.
and provosts about what additional programs we need. So we looked at those high need, high wages kind of opportunities for students, and that list that you saw was driven from that.
Wonderful.
That side.
Thank you for the information.
Thank you.
Definitely some encouraging points in there, especially with the first time in college students trending upwards and the Pinellas High School graduates as well. Next is Budget and Finance.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Board
Good morning.
Trustees, Dr. Williams. This morning, I'm going to present to you the final fiscal year 16-17 budget report and also give you some updates on the current fiscal year 17-18. First, let's focus on the revenue, where we ended our tuition revenue back in December. We started looking at our enrollment and where we were trending. And in February, we came and we projected that we'd be about a negative 7% from our year-over-year amount. We actually ended the year a little bit better than that at a negative 5.3%, with a total of $52.6 million in our tuition. Next, we ended our year in our appropriations. Typically, we would end this, you would see 100% for each line item. In our state appropriation for our Florida College systems line, you see that 0.1%. We actually received an adjustment from a prior year correction from the state for our Florida retirement system. Here, these line items include some of our other student fees. I wanted to point out one, which is our lab fees. We budgeted $1.7 million. We actually received $1.9. You see here the percentage year to date is a little under 15% more than what we budgeted. But if you look at the year over year percentage, the 1%, we typically get a little bit more in our lab fee courses. And so we're actually in line with that trend. Next, we have our industry certifications. Back in June, I presented to you. Last fiscal year, we received $331,000. This year, we received a little bit under $596,000. That was based on the appropriation that the colleges received $10 million, and our share was the $596,000. Now, looking at the last two line items, which are items that are funded by our reserve. One of the charges that this board gave back in December was to reduce our reliance on our fund balance or our reserves. And so we had initially budgeted about $4.5 million to spend this fiscal year. We actually projected back in February that we'd spend $3.4 million of that, and we came in at the end of the fiscal year at $3.5 million. Our total revenue of $148.6 million. Now looking at our operating expenses, again, when we knew that our enrollment was trending a little bit down, we adjusted our expenses, and we came up with a plan that we would actually reduce some of our personnel expenses. Also from our December meeting, we were directed by our board to also look at the reduction in our ratio and reduce by 2.5%. And so we see here the year-over-year change is a negative, and that was due to vacancies that we did have, and we created some lapse there were realized. But as you see in the professional line item, that year-over-year change is actually positive 13%. That was mainly due to our career and academic advisors. We had a plan a couple years back that they would be reclassified as professional positions. We ended the year at $118.6 million in our personnel, which was a year-over-year change of a negative 1.3%. Also looking at our health insurance, Desiree presented earlier some numbers. Her numbers are actually a calendar year numbers. These numbers are fiscal year numbers, so you'll see there's a little bit of difference there. We knew back in December that our costs would actually be around 15 million, so we came in pretty close to what our projected amount was. And you see there the year-over-year actual cost change is a little under 10%. The other personnel benefits, we came in at 12.7 million. I also wanted to note here that amount does not include what we can call our GASB 68. This is an accounting principle that a few years back they decided that we would actually on our books include the Florida Retirement System's liability. It is not the college liabilities. This is a liability of the state. Also, this is something that we consider to be below the line, which is something that does not affect our reserve or our fund balance. Again, in this plan, we came to you and we said we were going to reduce our spending. We did that. You see in our current expense and our capital, year-over-year change. In our current expense, we spent about $3 million less than we did last fiscal year. And in our capital, we spent about $30,000 less than we did last fiscal year. Are there any questions on the final fiscal year 16-17 report? Okay. So I'll move on to some updates for 17-18. Next month, you'll see a full report. We'll have 2 months of activity that we can discuss in the next board meeting. But I wanted to give you some updates on what happened since we last met in June. Our performance funding. Back in June, you approved the board approved a budget of performance funding of $3.6 million. That was based on the information that we knew at the time. Since then, we've gotten information on what our allocation actually is, which is $3.5 million. That is a $138,000 difference. What happened with the performance-based funding is $30 million of that allocation was given from the 28 colleges. Our portion was $1.76 million. In addition to that, the state made an investment of another $30 million, which totaled a $60 million pot of money. We also fell in the silver category, so we restored our base was restored of $1.6 million, and also our share of the state investment was another $1.76 million. Since then, we've amended our budget, and pursuant to our Florida Administrative Code and our board rules, it directs and authorizes the college president in order to amend a budget in a situation like this. And so that amendment actually was less than 0.1% of change. We see here that we adjusted our state funding by the $138,000, and we also, as an offset, adjusted our expenses in our contingency by the same amount. Next, we wanted to look at the enrollment projections. As Dr. Renard and Dr. Coraggio mentioned earlier, we budgeted based on a decline of 3.5%. We are right now at 3.4%. Just giving you a comparison of where we budgeted at tuition overall and student fees was $61.2 million. Our projection right now is about $53,000 more than where we projected. We will continue to track and monitor this. As they mentioned, this first week is students are continuing to register, and we do have our express sessions. The next two slides are slides that we wanted to just bring to you as a reminder and keep in front of you. Back in June, Mr. Brian Miles gave you details on the plans that we were also going to be looking at for our budget realignment. Phase 2 was a 6-month review. I won't read each one, but you see here we are working on these plans. We will come back to you next month with a more detailed information to see where we are with those plans. We also had a phase 3, which was going to be reviewed in the next 12 months. And again, we'll get more information to you next board meeting. Are there any questions on the fiscal year 17-18 updates? No?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think we got one more thing.
We'll move past the subjects we already talked about, and there's a Saxon QEP update.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Williams. It's always nice to end a board meeting talking about our accreditor and our QEP plan. I'm here with Jennifer and Heather to give you an update on our upcoming accreditation visit in October. Just to kind of remind you, this past March, we submitted our report with our 91 standards to our off-site review committee. They reviewed it and only found questions on 10 of them, which was an amazing feat considering the average is 18 that most institutions have to respond to. We've now since written our responses to those 10 standards and have finalized our quality enhancement plan and are just waiting to turn it in later this month. We're going to spend the next 6 weeks preparing everyone in the institution to be ready for the on-site visit on October 9th through 12th, and we hope that you have some time set aside during those times just in case they call you to come into an interview. To give you an idea of what that site visit will look like, on Monday when they arrive, they're going to spend most of their time visiting our different campuses and getting tours, and they'll also get an overview from Dr. Williams about the college and the history and all that we've been doing over the past 10 years. On Tuesday, they'll begin their interviews where they ask questions on some of the standards as well as the QEP, and they'll get an overview of the QEP completely. On Wednesday, they'll continue their interviews, and at the end of the day, the chair of that committee will meet with Dr. Williams and let her know how we've done. Are there going to be further questions, or do they feel like we've done a pretty good job? We hear all about that on the next morning during the exit conference.
Okay, as you heard Sabrina mention, we have been working on our SAC standards report and our quality enhancement plan for the last 2 years, so we're very excited that we're nearing the end of this reaffirmation journey. We have the daunting task now of getting all of our stakeholders ready for this on-site visit that's coming from October 9th through 12th. So one of the things that we're doing is that we have an on-site visit committee and a fall planning committee that has been working over the past few months, trying to come up with some ideas so that we can engage our stakeholders so that everyone's ready for when the on-site visit occurs. So what we're doing is we're launching this week an online training that all faculty, students, and staff will take here at the college. It's a 5-minute training. There's an introductory video by Dr. Williams, kind of going over the value of accreditation, talking a little bit about our quality enhancement plan. Then there's about a minute and 30 seconds of an informational video, followed by an 11-question quiz. So the whole thing's done in about 5 minutes. We're, again, requesting that everyone goes through this training. Also, we are going to be hosting campus visits. They're one-day visits on each campus, so we're going to have a variety of times that we can meet with the different stakeholder groups. We also have 3 online sessions that are planned as well at various different times so we can reach our online students and also our online faculty as well. In addition, we have what we're calling our Ready, Set, Succeed Spirit Week, which will be the week right before the on-site visit occurs. So we're going to have daily activities. We're going to be really gearing up and sort of wrapping up all of that awareness so that people are ready and raring to go on October 9th. We have also developed a frequently asked questions website, and it's on our SACS website. And that is kind of gives everyone an overview in general of what are some of the frequently asked questions about the accreditation or reaffirmation process. And then also, too, we have specific FAQs on each of the 10 standards that Sabrina mentioned so that we will have everything that we need, hopefully, to be prepared for those questions when the on-site committee arrives. We're also holding specialized meetings with each of the standard groups. So if the standard is affected, a certain stakeholder group or is, you're responsible for that standard, we're scheduling these individualized meetings over the next 6 weeks so that we can get folks ready and available for questions so that they're comfortable if the on-site committee does show up and ask questions. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Jen now.
Good morning. As the QEP faculty chair, it is my job to share the QEP with the entire institution, and that will be my goal. So we have provided a top 10 list that we are giving to all stakeholders at the college. It's on a card, it's going by email, it's on our website so that everyone can know what they should know about the QEP. Thank you, Dr. Williams. First of all, just a few things from that card to let you know. Our topic, if you didn't know, is college readiness for long-term success. We want students who come into the college to be ready to succeed in college. Our goal is to give them strategies. We want to teach them things like time management, comprehension skills, knowledge monitoring, how to be motivated. So we are going to get these students into a class into a community we're calling a neighborhood for success, where they can get those strategies. It will be led by a faculty mentor and a success coach, and they will guide them for the next year through those strategies. Our population for this is the flexible opt-out population. These are the students who were recommended to take developmental courses but chose not to. We know from our data that these are the students who are in the greatest need, and we want to help them to succeed. Our pilot will begin in just a couple of weeks. It starts actually in week 5. It will start at the Clearwater and Gibbs campuses. The reason why we chose these campuses as a pilot is because we wanted to tackle 2 different areas, and we saw that these were our greatest populations of flexible opt-out students. So we are very excited to move forward. We're excited to share the plan with everyone, and we look forward to having a successful SACS visit.
Great.
Okay, so just so you understand, when the on-site committee comes, they're really looking at 2 things. Number 1 is the quality enhancement plan. This will be the first time anyone has read this, so that when that gets sent out, they're the key members who review that. The other one is those 10 follow-up standards, but they're also required to look at 18 other standards that are required by the federal government, mainly pertaining to things like admissions, financial aid, all of those basic things. If you're wondering how you might get involved in this process, there may be a possibility that they'll want to meet all 5 phases, since that was one of our standards. Our governor had not appointed 2 of our positions, and so we were out of compliance. They might want to see all 5 phases, I'm not sure. Certainly when Dr. Williams gives her overview, that would be an excellent time for 1 or 2 of you to be in the room. And as we get the schedule from them, we'll be happy to share that with you. So we thank you, and we hope that you will also be SACS ready.
Excellent.
Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you all for your hard work on this. I know it's been a long time.
It's exciting.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, finally, we are going to move to the President's report.
All
Dr.
right.
Williams?
Cool. I think I have 2 things I want to share. One, I want to recognize the work of Frances New. She's been working very hard to help us find different donors for our buildings and the things that we're trying to do. She's been working with Ms. Jane Silverberg, who has agreed to designate $150,000 to put a name on the community center at the St. Pete STEM Center. And Frances, I want to thank you for the work that you have done. This room that she's going to have her name on will be adjacent to Dr. John Chapin's laboratories in the community room at the STEM Center, which will accommodate lectures, conferences, and demonstrations. I think this is a great opportunity for the college, and please let the Silverbergs know how much we value and appreciate them. Also in your packet, you have a copy of the letter that I sent to the college family regarding the transition team. I thought that Trustee Gibbons' idea of the 360 review is pertinent. It is something that the faculty have asked for. And so I think this would be perfect for the transition team to do so. The transition team is made up of several different representatives of the college. Some were appointed, some were volunteers. They asked to be on the team. They'll be working with this consultant, who, by the way, is doing this for free, which is great for us. And he'll be working with this group for about 75 days. The purpose is for them to share concerns, but also ideas and solutions that will help us move forward as we look at where we're going as a college and what we're doing. I will not be involved, and neither will any VP or any of our executive leaders on this committee. We want this committee to be open and for everyone who's involved to feel comfortable in sharing their ideas, stresses, and concerns. So we look forward to that report. They'll be reporting to the executive team once they get their things together, and we'll bring it back to this group.
Great.
So we'll hear from them. And that is my report for right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here today. Our next meeting is September 19th right here. Meeting is adjourned.